It is possible my kids might pop in. I asked them not to, but
Actually, there's a lot of kids here that might pop in too. We just happen to
okay.
be adults. I'm sure you'll see people doing something in the background, probably chanting or
Cheering us on.
sure. Looks like we're live now. We'll wait a little bit for some folks to get on before we get started with content, but just wanted to introduce Brittany Giles, our tech ambassador, myself, Anthony Lynham, the team leader here at Keller Williams of Central PA. And our mission here at Keller Williams of Central PA is empowering people to reach their goals and dreams. So one of the reasons why we're here on this Facebook Live is we're going through the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, which is commonly referred to as the Red Book. And it's a tool and a resource that has empowered a lot of people to reach their goals and dreams in real estate. More importantly, I think it's just an amazing business model and a business manual for anybody who's really looking to understand how to write a business plan, how to come up with a business model and a vision for your company, and then how to work that backwards into, the Red Book teaches us there's 4 different models: a lead generation model, a conversion model, a budget model, and an organizational model. So if you think of just business plans for any business, that's what's required. And the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book steps us through doing that, not only for a real estate business, but to get you to a level where you're generating $1 million in net commissions. And again, it's been used and widely used for decades. So it's a pretty big deal, I would say, right, Brittany?
Yeah, I think this is kind of like the real estate Bible, if you will. People live by it, and it helps them not only scale their business, but Gary teaches as you scale how you can use leverage and other resources to also maintain work-life balance, right? Because real estate is a tool to help you achieve your dreams. It doesn't have to be your entire life. So that's something that I appreciate with it as well. And it kind of provides agents an exit strategy, if you will.
Yes. That's great. Great point. So let's get into the content for today. We are going through chapters, is it 3? Think Big.
Yeah, so we are in part 2 of the book. Yep. I think my book is a little bit different than yours because you have the actual instructor book.
I see.
I have the plain student manual.
Go off your student manual. It's all the same stuff.
Yep. But we're really talking today about how to think a million. One thing that I love about Gary's books, because I've read a couple of them, they always start out with mindset first, because it's kind of like as you prepare to do something big in your life, whether it's going to college, getting married, having a baby, like a lot of times there's a mindset shift that occurs before you actually take that action. Like, am I ready to do this? Get in that mindset frame. And this part of the book is all about that, how to think big, think like a million. So that way you can truly rip off that Band-Aid and chase your dreams. And the one thing that I loved is in the book, Gary even mentioned that when he first opened his office, he used to answer his phone as the national office, even though he only had one office. But that was part of his thinking big, like, I'm going to be national someday. And now he's global. And just saying it out loud gave him that energy. And to be like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to succeed. I'm going to be national someday, kind of like an affirmation.
Right.
And
yeah,
that's what a lot of this book is about, or this part of the book is about. It's just getting in the right frame of mind.
Yeah. The other part of that was think big models.
Yeah.
We're going to get into, thinking your big why and also thinking big models. And, obviously, what I think is important about models is they show you the way, but you also get to change how you get there as you go if you have a model. because you always have an as-is model, and then you have the model that you're striving to get to. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well.
And the one thing that this all kind of brought me back to as well, like as I was reading the chapter, Anthony does a lot of EOS coaching, and we work on, or we as a company have what's called a vision traction organizer. And it really just helped me apply that to what we do every day, because our vision traction organizer is really a business plan that lays out our 1, 2, and 5-year goals for the company. So even though we have these little stepping blocks that we're working towards every day, we are constantly keeping that 5-year picture in the back of our mind, which I think is really what gives us the energy to do those baby steps every day. Do you mind telling a little bit more about that? Am I covering that part correctly?
Yeah, why don't I show and tell at the same time?
That'd be
Would
great.
that be good?
I would
Yeah,
love
because
that.
it's important when we're talking about a vision tool, right? So let me cover a few things that Brittany said. VTO is an acronym for Vision Traction Organizer. The vision of your business is, where are we going? What are our goals? What's our mission statement? What are our core values? And I'll show and tell. It makes it a lot easier. So can you see my screen?
I can see it.
Yeah, so this is the tool that we're referring to. And first, just to make mention, there's a lot of vision tools that are out there. Stephen Covey has a vision tool. This happens to be a vision tool from Gino Wickman, who's the author of the book Traction. And then his way, or in the book Traction, his way of running a business is called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating Systems. This is their vision tool. Keller Williams also has a vision tool, which is called a 411, where you organize your annual vision of your life in both professional and personal. And then you break that down, the traction part, and how do you get traction on your goals? Well, you start scheduling action. And in Keller Williams Vision Tool, it's monthly goals and then weekly tasks in order to get to those goals. So you see that here in both professional and personal. So what I love about Keller Williams is it brings the personal goals into your professional development. And their vision tool allows us to do that. And you see it, like, it's actually kind of simple. It's not much. Stephen Covey's is very similar. They're not elaborate. They don't have to be. What's important is that you've established a yearly vision of your life, and that you break it down into chunks, into actionable chunks, monthly and weekly, in order for you to achieve your goals. That's vision, traction. And then the last piece for organization is a picture of what your organization looks like. And EOS has that here as a 2-year picture. So what's cool about the VTO, and I don't want to go into too much teaching because we want to talk about the book, but this VTO has your core values on it. Then it has your purpose, cause, and passion, which is your mission statement. Keller Williams' essential PA is empowering people to reach their goals and dreams. You can do this through exercises to get these answers. And then what this does is it allows you to take your vision in 5 years and start to put measurable targets on your vision. Okay. So with that, then you can work backwards and see the people, the resources, the revenue, and the measurable systems that you need to have in place in order to get to that 5-year target. Now, going back to what Brittany said, the beauty of it, a 5-year target, is that everybody knows where they're going 5 years from now. When you continue to have a 1-year target, then nobody knows where they're going year after year. So you can incorporate a lot of these different tools in your business. What's important about this one is that it's a 5-year vision, and then it breaks the vision, which is typically, a large, huge goal, down into measurable targets for you to start putting measurable targets out there for year 2 and year 1. And the end of this EOS, while the value proposition and unique value that your company brings and its target marketing is important on here as well. And then this is what you would say is your traction, which is a 1-year plan, quarterly rocks, and issues list is what are the things standing in our way of achieving our goals. Important thing to keep in mind is this is one tool to use. that allows you to take your vision to an organized action plan. That's the whole point, right? So anywhere you do that and any way you do that is a good thing. This just happens to keep it very organized and helps you get there quickly.
Helps you put the systems in place.
Right, exactly. So this, again, it's just a vision tool. There has to be, so glad you mentioned systems. That's the system.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this is the system is, if you go to eosworldwide.com, it'll tell you what the other parts of this system is. And as Brittany mentioned, that VTO is just one component of the EOS business system. This is a weekly meeting where all of that action takes and accountability takes place. And there's also scorecards and accountability charts, but we're here to talk about big models and big vision.
Big
right?
vision.
So I'm going to stay there. Big models, big vision. I got wrapped up in that tool.
No, I have a feeling we'll reference this a lot.
Yep.
And it's just because it constantly comes up. Like every time I would like flip the page, I'd be like, we do that with this system, or we do that. And it's cool because it just helps me relate to it better.
Right.
And understand it better. But
well,
really,
can I make a point there real quick?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I think where we fall short as business owners is, we're using this tool, but we don't have the other tool to go with it. Right. So like you said, you're reading the book and you're like, oh, well, we do that using this tool. So these are ideas, but it still takes the tools and resources for you to execute. Like you have to be using that tool. The other thing we do is we'll maybe use that tool and it gets stuffed in a drawer somewhere. Right. But if you're actually using it, so the way we use it is we review it monthly at sales meetings, we review it in weekly meetings, you're using it. So it's important to note that like, first you have the ideas, then you adopt or adapt to the tools, get those in place, then you have the systems to run the tools on a regular basis.
Love it. And I think a lot of that, when you're constantly touching it, you're constantly reviewing it, it helps keep your big why in frame of mind. Yep. That's what, Gary says, like to think a million, it's broken down into a big why, big goals and big models to get you there. And I think having that big why, it reminds you not only why you do what you do every day, but also what you're going to miss out on if you take no action. So if you wake up in the morning and you don't do anything to work towards your big why, you're actually not allowing that to happen. So what are you taking away from your life or your family by not taking action and working towards that big goal? So that's something that works for me, because it's kind of like, it's one thing to say, oh, I can't wait to have financial freedom. It's another thing to say, oh man, how am I affecting my kids if I don't do what I'm supposed to do today? And then I ultimately don't achieve financial freedom. And then as a mom, I can be like, I'm not going to let them go to college. They won't be able to have a big wedding when they get married. Like you can start really feeding all the negative of like what won't happen.
Pain does motivate.
It does.
Right.
Sure. So I love that. And I mentioned Gary breaks it down, powered by a big why, with big goals and big models. And then he breaks that down into foundational categories, which are think possibilities, think action, think without fear, think progress, think competitively and strategically, and then of course, think service. So it's not just about the big why, but it's also how you think, make decisions, how you take action to make all these things happen. Yep. So just to start, Anthony, I'll ask you the first question. What does powered by a big why mean? And how does that help agents grow?
So first, I just want to make sure everybody would understand what powered by a big why would mean. That would mean, so our company's example would mean your purpose, cause, and passion statement, empowering people to reach your goals and dreams. That's the company's big why.
Yep.
Your big why as a person is why do you do what you do? So Brittany's, I would imagine, involves her kids because that's what's driving her. Mine, which I wrote years ago doing this exercise from the Red Book, and I haven't changed it since, is I had it before kids, was just having the greatest impact that I can on others to give back what's been given to me. Be a blessing because, you're blessed. What that allows, so if anyone wants to do the exercise yourself, just ask yourself, why do I do what I do? Why did I get up and go to work today? Why do I go to make money? And then you have to ask your first answer, you have to ask yourself, why is that answer important? And then you ask yourself again, why is that important? So you ask yourself 3 times, at least 3 times, why is it important? And you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper to find your big why. And there's also an exercise in the book if you want to get a copy from the office. But the reason why I think it's important, to get to the point, is it pushes you through that pain, right? It pushes you through uncertainty, pushes you through fear. So that's a big reason. And if you look at what Gary listed as supportive, is think possibilities, think action, without fear, think progress, and then I'll address the other ones, but those are all mindset. So if my why is big enough for me to overcome my fears, I'll push through my fears and I'll accomplish the goal. If my why is big enough, then I won't limit my possibilities and think of small possibilities. I'm going to think of bigger possibilities because my why is bigger. So if I have a very small why, my possibilities are likely to be small as well. Or at least the two need to be in line. If you have, huge expectations of big possibilities, then you have to have a big why to get there. It's just a real quick story. I don't know if you know who Mr. Beast is, but my kids are all into him. He's a YouTube, star that makes a ton of money and then he gives most of it away. And he'll go in and buy a car lot and then he'll give all the cars away. Just buy all the cars and then they'll put a sign out front, free cars, and then just give all the cars away. So he has a video out with his big why. And his big why is just to make the world a better place. That's it. The guy's planted hundreds of thousands of trees, right? Do you think that has any relation to how successful he is on YouTube? He's probably the #1 YouTube star as far as income and revenue is concerned. But if you think about it, he even says in the video, that's what allowed him to get to his level, because otherwise he just, it was just about making videos and making money. And once he realized that he could make the world a better place, that he now has that responsibility, and he started thinking that was now his job, then that's when everything blew up. So pretty cool story. Just check it out.
I definitely have to look him up because that just reminds me too. Nathan Knight and I taught Financial Peace University, and the very last class was about, the reason why you do this isn't necessarily just to be rich, right? It's not just to build wealth, but it's so you can give back. And that's something that I've always struggled with. I see all these causes and I want to donate funds, right? But what does $20 really do? But if I achieve my goal of financial freedom, I can make much larger donations to those organizations that matter to us. And then you just make a bigger impact. And when you think about it that way, it helps drive you because you're like, wow, there's something much bigger than just being successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. So to just recap that, gives you bigger purpose, gives you a bigger ceiling, pushes you through fear, and then allows you to give more back, which drives you even harder.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you make it more about yourself, or more than about yourself, I should say.
Right. Yep.
And how you do that is big goals and big models, because they foster big habits. And one thing I've noticed, especially being on a real estate team before I did this, it seemed like everybody was trying, because you had these big goals, you knew to be successful, you had to do all these other good things. And part of those good things were even just taking care of yourself better, eating healthier, getting up every morning and working out. Those small things lead up to big habits and just make you an overall, I think, better person. So I think it's cool because it helps you in your personal life to then also be successful in your business. And Gary Keller used the example of running a marathon. Like running a marathon is a huge goal. Even a half marathon is huge, but they help you get through. Having that big goal helps you get through the smaller steps. So maybe you start with, okay, I'm going to run a mile this week. And then in a couple of weeks, you're like, okay, I'm going to work up to a 5K. And then in a couple of weeks, you work up to a 10K until you get to that bigger step. And I think having that big goal, those big models motivate you to get through the baby steps.
Yep.
Otherwise, they would seem kind of daunting on their own.
Yeah. Well, let me add to that real quick, because the big models are important to show you that it's possible.
Right.
The reason the model itself is important is because you can take it and then make a smaller piece of it and say, this is what I'm supposed to accomplish now. So to your point is, hey, it's the baby steps to get there, right? Nobody's expecting that you take this business plan that's making $1 million and then it's yours and it's done.
Right.
You have the model, so you get to just plug into it and then you're good to go.
It were that easy.
Yeah, nope, we're 1/10 of the way there. Therefore, we're at 1/10 of the model, and this is what it's supposed to look like. And 6 months from now, I'm going to be 2/10 of the way there. And in 2/10 of the way there, this is what the model is supposed to look like. So to me, that's what powered by big models means. It means that you get to take the small bite-sized chunks and have a lot less stress, I would say.
Yeah. And it makes it seem more doable.
Yeah, for sure.
I think saying out loud, like, I'm going to net $1 million in commissions, that might seem impossible.
Right.
But when you're like, well, if I get to this goal and then to this goal and then to this goal, next thing you know, you're a millionaire real estate agent. The next section he talks about is how can an agent think with possibilities, and how can they put that into practice?
It's a good question. It's something that we covered on the last Facebook Live. We said, what do systems and models do for you? Well, it shows you that, like, hey, and this is about possibilities. This is possible because there's a model there for it. Well, you can look at, there's other teams and even brokerages that run these same models inside of our own market. And they're successful. So, it shows you that it's possible. That's number one. The other thing too, that it's important is, it's so funny. I was thinking about this on my drive back from lunch today. And, everybody talks about talent, right? Like, this person's so talented, that person's not talented. It's like, you know what? Like, there really is not a whole lot of difference between talent and no talent. Like, it's hard work is what it is. Hard work will kill talent any day. So, when you talk about what's possible, like this with a model, this is possible for anybody. It's so true, because with models, like, the stuff's figured out already.
Yeah.
You don't have to have talent to go figure it out. You don't have to have talent to go reinvent the wheel. You do need talent for that. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's a lot of talented people out there who have done some incredible things, and, mad respect to them. But when you have models, like, you don't need talent. It's the equalizer, right? So it makes the possibilities possible for just about anybody.
And I think that possibilities tie in with actions, because once you realize something's possible, it motivates you to take action.
Yeah.
I recently read a story. So everybody probably knows of the Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol story.
Mhm.
And I learned recently that he was on the verge of bankruptcy when he wrote that story, and no publisher wanted it. So he knew it was possible. He knew it was a good story. So he took action and had it self-published. And now it's like the second most famous Christmas story in the world. And
That's
it's
cool.
been recreated. I mean, even the Muppets redid it, right? Like it's just, it's amazing. And that's what I thought of when I was reading about possibilities in action, because it's like here he believed in himself, and that's part of it. You have the models to show you the path and to say, hey, this can be done. You just got to do the work. And then taking action is the next step, which I like to refer to as just ripping the Band-Aid off and doing it. Even if I think failing forward is better than no action at all.
100%. For sure. I have a feeling you have some questions about that coming up.
Well, I was going to ask you, how do big models help agents take action? And how can agents break through fear of failure or fear of setbacks when they take those actions? Because I think that's probably the biggest paralyzer for agents is fear.
Why don't you go first?
So what I would say is big models, again, give them the stepping stones. So do this,
Right.
this step, this step, this step, and you'll eventually get here. And I think how agents can build through fear is honestly to embrace failure, because anytime you do fail, you learn. There's nobody that has been successful that didn't fail at all. Michael Jordan didn't become a famous basketball player always making free throws. Like he missed, he failed.
Yeah, it was the matter of fact, he had to walk onto the college team. He wasn't recruited.
Right.
So, yep. He wasn't a high school standout or anything like that. He walked onto the college team and made a name for himself. So story.
He believed in himself and he had the model. Like he
Worked
knew
for
he
it.
had to play college basketball to get into, gosh, what is that called? I'm so not a sports person. Is that the NBA?
NBA. Oh,
I watch hockey. Maybe I need to stick to hockey. But yeah, so that's what it is for me. It's like just embrace sometimes falling on your face, just get up, brush off, and be like, okay, what can I do differently?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, embracing failure, you have to get used to it. And I can tell you, even after probably close to 2 decades now, do you see Jason?
Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't relax when he walked behind you.
Yeah. But yeah, it's something that I can't say you ever totally embrace without pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to embrace it, and you can't be afraid of failing. I can tell you with 100% certainty that once you embrace it to the level where you're like, okay, I understand that it's needed and that it's normal, that's when you skyrocket through stuff, because now all of a sudden, like you have a process for it. Like you have a process for dealing with failure or problems or issues within your business. Again, going back to the models and systems, like, in an EOS model, there's an issues list that allows you to come together as a team and resolve issues. Like that is a system for you to embrace failure, right? But in the lack of that system, how do you embrace failure? Like do your employees like just talk to each other about how you're failing, and like
And
then you talk to them one-on-one about how you're failing, and then there's no action.
Right.
So I'm not going to get off on a systems kick, but like you need the systematic way of dealing with failure in order to embrace failure. So 2-part answer for me. One, like you have to learn to embrace it. And then 2, once you embrace it, like make sure you have a system of resolving it. There's all kinds of things out there. There's the debrief meeting. There's there's a way of handling failure in your business so that you turn it around into plan to action that then gets you to your goal.
It's kind of like a safety net.
Right.
The system is the safety net.
Yeah.
I like that because I think about when I got into real estate and I decided to go full time, I joined the Dave Hook team. And part of that reason, right, I plugged into their system and their team because failure wasn't an option. Like I could fail in a small way, right? Like there's learning curves that I had to take. But I was a single mom and I had rent to pay and kids to feed. So sometimes utilizing the fear of failure motivates you. But the system was my safety net because I knew if I plugged in and I did what Dave Hook told me to do, I might have some minor failures, but I wasn't going to fall flat on my face. Like his system was my safety net.
Yeah, I like that for sure. Yeah, well, and I think your question was, how would you advise, people deal with failure, right? I had it on my screen a second ago. Yeah, it really comes down to when you are able to work through that failure with others. One thing I want to add is you can't do failure alone.
That's good.
Yeah. So to put it simply, you have to have a way of working through it with others. So whether it's a mentor, in your personal life, it's your friends and your family, right? Like they help you work through your failures. But in business, like ultimately the models help you to say, okay, this is where it's supposed to be, and I'm trying to get there. But then it comes into that, like your coworkers, your leaders, your mentors, coaches, trainers, all that stuff. Like you have to bounce failures off of other people.
Yeah, because they give you different perspective.
Yep, 100%.
No, I think that's something that our culture at our office really embraces too, because you see it all the time. I myself had a failure recently, and I was able to, talk to a couple people in the office and just get their perspective.
Yep.
And it made all the difference because sometimes when you're thinking about it by yourself, you can either be too harsh on yourself, which is supernatural, to the point that you can't see how you can really fix it. And then B, like everybody else has different experiences.
Yep.
So they might just have a different solution that you haven't thought of because they've gone through something similar. So no, that's great. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The next one he talks about, Gary Keller talks about is, treating your business like a game in order to think competitively and strategically. And this one is probably one that I would struggle with because I always want to be the nice guy. So I would love your input on how can you treat your business like a game to think competitively and strategically? I have a feeling it'll tie back to the VTO a little bit.
Well, yeah, so strategy is everything, particularly in real estate, because the strategy shifts so often, right? And you have a lead generation strategy and that changes. Some of the things that have always worked in business are still working. Network with your sphere of influence, talk to other business owners and affiliate with them, referrals back and forth. And then ultimately like old school prospecting, which is just call people you don't know and see if they know anybody who's looking to buy or sell real estate. Like all those things still work, right? Everything else continuously changes. So if it's online marketing, print, billboards, everything from billboards to not granted, we don't have phone books anymore, but start to show my age.
Oh boy.
Right. We're just diving down this rabbit hole.
There's like brand new agents who are like 20 who are like, what's a phone?
What's a phone book? All right. So, but you see what I'm saying? Like all those things, they change and they are changing faster now, right? So the way that we advertise, the way we generate leads, so you go back, a decade, it's Craigslist, then half a decade, it's Facebook. And now it's just rapidly changing. It's, Facebook and 3 other social media platforms. So, and that's going to keep rapidly changing as the demographics, you go to a younger demographic. So all that to be said, if you're not constantly adjusting your strategies, you're going to fall behind, or you're going to lose market share in business. That's simple. So that's on the lead generation side. The organizational side of people and resources, also always changing in strategy, particularly because the ways that you do business and generate business is constantly changing. So I wish I had a magic bullet for, how you approach strategy. I think the answer is you just always have to be doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then going back to models, what do the models tell us to do? Well, the models tell us that you have to check in on that strategy at a minimum quarterly. So if you have marketing strategies, you have to measure them, check in on them, see if they're working, and adjust. I mean, that should be monthly marketing strategies. Your organizational model is your people and resources that you're using. Systems, those need to be checked to see if they're working or how they're working, again, at a minimum quarterly. So that's taking strategy and putting a model to it to where you can take action and put it into place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that. And I like, just going back to the system and then reviewing it, because you can have a system, but that doesn't mean that it can't change.
Right.
So if the system starts to not work, whether it's a marketing system or a lead generation system, you can review it and be like, okay, we're failing short here. What do we need to do to change it? And if you only review it once a year, it might be too late.
Yeah.
But reviewing it once a month and quarterly, you're going to be able to stay on top of it, because markets shift overnight. I mean, look at what happened with COVID. Just a very fast shift, quicker than anybody, historically has seen in this business. So you have to just constantly be reviewing it. And that goes to, I think, when you talk about competitively and strategically, I think, at least for me, sometimes I have like a negative connotation with it. Like, I think competitiveness can get ugly. But Gary Keller mentions, you still have to set standards. And I think, like our VTO, our vision traction organizer, we have core values that we always hire to. So if an agent doesn't fit those core values, they may not be brought on to KW, because we want to make sure that KW Central PA's level of standards are across the board with all of our agents. So I think you can be competitive and strategic and successful and still have standards so you can make a positive impact. But then it also goes down to, when you're hiring people, sometimes you're so busy, you're just like, I just need someone to shuffle this paperwork around for me. Having standards just make sure you put the right person in place, so that way your customers, your clients, they're still getting the same service that you would have given.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you're branching out and hiring more people to help you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because how often do you see businesses without standards fail? Right? They didn't have a minimum customer service standard. Well, that's not going to last very long, right? Nope. They didn't have a core values standard. Chances are you're going to turn people over faster than you want to, because somebody's going to have a core values rub somewhere, or not get along, because they just have different personalities. There's nothing, there's no set standard for core values. It's a reflection of the culture of that company, which can be different. And so, I'll give you an example. One culture, a company of one culture can be to win at all costs. And the culture of another company can be generosity. Like, maybe there's not a direct correlation there. I'm just saying that, there's win at all costs is going to be coupled with a few other core values like excellence. Obviously, integrity, you hope, is in everywhere. But it's a different organization with those different core values. So it's something to consider, when you're looking at both strategic and competitive, because I think your core values are part of what makes you competitive as an employer in the marketplace. Nobody wants to work for a place that has that. How many places actually establish their core values? So, and then there's organizations where they just clearly don't exist or don't want to, actually run a business that way. And then, nobody wants to work for those organizations. So the positive thing here is that the first step is, be aware that this is helpful. If you're going to be competitive and strategic in growing your business, know that having part of your core values as part of your vision is a way to do that. Because everything that we've talked about today is part of your vision of the company. Standards that you set for your company are part of the vision of your company. It's how you're going to operate.
And I think your marketing reflects that, your decision-making reflects that. Like everything kind of goes back to your standards, your core values, or at least it should. It should all match.
Yeah, for sure. And if we could even take like a few steps back, and I think, Simon Sinek's Golden Circle, if you guys haven't seen that, very simple. The outside circle is what you do. The next circle in is how you do what you're doing. And then this inner circle is why you do what you do. And he says that if you communicate on the why, people are more likely to use you or buy with you or sell with you or what have you, right? Follow you, refer you, etc. And real simple example, right? So as real estate agents, what we do is I help people buy and sell homes. The how I do it is I help people buy and sell homes with a guaranteed service or, with unique attention to you because I don't have a team, right? And then the why we do what we do is, I sell real estate because I have the ability to impact people and give back what's been given to me, right? So you start communicating why you're doing what you're doing. That's your vision. So I wanted everybody to see that, communicating what you do is not part of your vision. You made me think about this when you said your marketing strategy.
Okay.
So communicating your marketing strategy needs to be based around your why you do what you do, because people will follow your vision before they follow what you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the why you do what you do is the vision of you, your life, and your company. And yes, you have to tell people that you help people buy and sell homes. You have to tell them what you do, and you should be telling them how you do it. And that's what sets you apart. So just going back to, those three circles, I think it's just important for people to understand that like this, we're talking about powered by a big why and big models. That's the vision of your company. And that's the foundation of your business, real estate business or any other business. So if that's the foundation of your business, you want to start communicating that to the people you talk to your customers, because that's what's most important. And that'll serve as a very strong foundation for you and your business, and it'll get people to keep coming back as well. Again, the foundation of your business, powered by a big why, which is the vision of your company. If you don't have one, you need to establish one. And then powered by big models, which is where are we going 5 years from now? Also part of your vision, right? And then the big models, like we said, allows you to chunk it down into smaller steps so that you have a plan to get to the big vision. So big why, big models, and all of that combined just really, in summary, allows you to communicate the why of your business to your consumers so that they understand why they're using you as well.
Your value proposition.
Yep.
Because anyone can sell real estate. Like anybody pretty much can get a real estate license and sell real estate. So why is a seller going to use you? Why is a buyer going to use you? And a lot of times it's because of a connection that they have.
Yep.
And if they connect with your big why, you're more likely to secure them as a client.
Yep.
And that's you pretty much just summed up the last section, because Gary Keller says, you have to think service, and agents tend to have a servant's heart. And the service approach is at 3 levels, which is purpose, the value proposition, and your fiduciary to your client, which is pretty much what you just said.
Right. So we'll line them up. The fiduciary to your client is what?
Is what you do. And then the why you do is the purpose, and the how you do is the value proposition. Look at that.
Pretty simple when you have models, just categories on a spreadsheet that we do exercise and fill them out. Yeah, it's great to have, like us, honestly, just to have these tools and resources. I couldn't imagine not having them. But to have them, listen to how clearly you're able to communicate both to your employees and your customer what it is you do, how you do it, and why it's important, right? Yeah. And right now, if you don't have those tools and resources in place, then you're likely to communicate 1, maybe 2 of the 3. Yeah.
Well, and it's in any business, right? So it's not even just real estate. My husband, Ben Giles, guitar player for Small Town Titans, they actually implemented, or are in the process of implementing, EOS and baby steps. But they did a VTO, and just the amount of growth and positive changes the band has had on a business, from a business standpoint, from implementing just the VTO itself, just having the big why, putting the models and systems into place. They actually have a path now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so not just real estate help, although it's meant for real estate, this book is. Well, but there's so much in here that it blows my mind, like how you can apply it to so many different businesses.
100%. Yeah, well, with that being said, we invite all of you guys to contact us at any time. If you're interested in looking into some of these tools and resources, doing some of the exercises to get this kind of organization in your business. We also have some great resources at kwagentportal.com. And you can go to the training library there at the top. Everything we talked about today, we already have recorded videos, most of which are in the business planning sessions. The exercises of a 411 vision tool, the VTO, all of those things are in the business planning training that's on our YouTube library. So just go to kwagentportal.com, go to the training library there. You'll see a lot of Brittany and I on those videos. If you've made it this far, we really appreciate you guys hanging out with us today. Come back and see us each Wednesday, or go back and listen to the previous recordings to get caught up on this, because we're going to go all the way through the book. And, we've gone through vision and theory so far, and Brittany knows the thing that I love the most is the practical application. So we will get into those lead generation models, the economic model, budget model. We're really going to start breaking it down. And then just come to one of our trainings where we have like the live workshops where we put this stuff into play. So we just appreciate everybody coming on. Anything you want to sign off on? Anything you want to say?
No, I'm definitely excited to get into the real nitty gritty. I could talk about this stuff all day, but to actually get into the models and how you can apply it to your business is definitely exciting.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right. Thanks, Brittany.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
Take care.